Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Dynamically Typed. You join me here in my shop with a 1916 or maybe 1920 LC Smith number 3, serial number 27679-3. That -3 is how you know it's a model number 3. And I'm going to talk you through a little bit of what I'm doing as I work on this, I don't want to say lovely, but salvageable piece of history here. I've already done a little work. I've removed the platen, which is in really good shape, as you can see here. Put it back up on the shelf. And this thing was just covered in plaster. I have no idea why, so I have already spent a fair amount of time scrubbing and removing plaster wherever I can. And you can still see some hints of it here and there. Let's maybe take a little zoom in. If we come in here, you can kind of see some back in that corner still. A little bit up here on some of the mechanics up here on the back of the carriage. I've found that Goo Gone seems to be doing the best job of cleaning it up. But that said, it's better than what I thought it was when I bought it. I thought it was covered in white paint, and I don't know how I was going to get rid of that. So it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. Originally, I had bought this as a parts machine. I was planning on fixing up an LC Smith number 8, and I saw this one for cheap, and I thought I could at least steal some of the parts from it. We'll get to that number 8 in a future episode, I assume, but for the time being, this one's salvaged up pretty well. Another couple of things you'll see, some of the keys are kind of ruined, which is unfortunate. However, there are a couple of custom keys here which make it really interesting, like this Chicago Smith Typewriter sales shift key. So that's got to be pretty rare, I would think. The decals are completely gone. I'm thinking about buying some new ones. There's someone on Etsy that sells them. We'll see if I get around to doing that. For the moment, what I'm going to do is do just a little bit more scrubbing on the type bars, but I've gotten them pretty well to move. Plenty of PB Blaster and just working the keys in and out. The next major thing I'm going to do will be to replace, let's get in here, as with several of the LC Smiths I've had, the pull strap has gone the way of old pull straps. So I have myself a waxed shoelace. Get that into frame. There we go. And we're going to install that into the machine. I have already removed the hardware, as you can see. I always keep things in a box. But I've already opened up the hardware and removed the old pull strap. So now the goal will be to add that. So let's start with a little scrubbing, because I can't get to the fun stuff right away. Set you up here. Gonna get some mineral spirits and my trusty toothbrush. So I've been using PB Blaster, which is great for freeing things up, but overall you don't want to use oils, because once you have oils on your typewriter, you're going to collect dust. So I've got myself a little scrub here, just mineral spirits, and I'm going to get in here and clean all the places that I put liberal amounts of PB Blaster. And I'm not going to get to all the places, but you got to see some of the boring stuff before you can get in. Here I'm scrubbing a little bit up here for the, not for the PB Blaster, but for the plaster. And a couple of these are going to need even more scrubbing than this, but we'll get to that when we get to that. As I said, the keys mostly work. Of course, you can see that the platen doesn't move, or the carriage doesn't move, because we have no pull strap. So the next important thing will be we're going to take our shoelace and our pull strap end, feed it in there as best we can. Now, opening this up was no easy measure. Got these itty bitty screwdriver bits, and I just work them in there and open until they open up. And now we're going to squeeze this thing down gently, gently. I want to get it nice and tight. Once you're pretty sure that it's going to hold, you have to cut it off. There it goes. Might clean that up a little bit more. This doesn't really matter too much. No one's going to see this. But, you know, the next person who works on this in 50 years, they don't want to see this mess hanging out there. Now, we have to figure out how long it's going to be. This pull strap here is going to connect to the very end of the carriage over here. And then the other end is going to attach to that drum that attaches to the mainspring. So how long should the strap be? Well, it has to be enough that the carriage can go as far over as it wants, so let's do margin release. And it's going to be about that long. Can't quite see. We're going to do, it's got to be about from there to there. And it doesn't have to be perfect because the mainspring can absorb some of that. And we're going to our clip. We're going to fish this into here. Easier said than done because, of course, you only open this just as far as you have to. An important thing to check is you're going to want this side to be on the bottom of the carriage. You want to check to make sure that this side will point down into that drum slot. I have already once put it on the wrong way and had to reopen these. They're so hard to open, you really don't want to have to do them again. Now, carefully pinch these closed. That's not going anywhere either. Let's see if we can get that. There it is. So now comes the hard part. Now we have to fish this through. And we have to fish it through along that line there. Can we get it into focus? There we go. See how there's a gap that goes right over that drum, and it has to go all the way down to the other side. So I'm going to work on that and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, I'm back. And so now you can see I have that shoved through that open gap straight along here, and now we can see it attaches to that little hole right there. So we're going to put this post here. We got our standoff, got our screw, goes through the pull strap holder and the standoff. We're going to put it right here. Where have I put my thin screwdriver? One thing that you cannot do without in typewriters is have an extra thin pointed screwdriver. Everything in this seems to have been made with a size of screw that modern or most screwdrivers will not handle. And now this attaches with a 1/4 turn. Oh, and I still need to trim the end here. If there's anything harder than doing this in person, it's doing it with a camera in the way. All right. So now we give it that 1/4 turn. And now, voila, you have the draw strap. So now, let's go to the main spring and winding mechanism back here. And start winding it up. A few turns should be enough. Still not enough yet. We're all the way at the end of the register, and it's sometimes a little bit sticky. So let's move it there. Oh, there we go. We're getting a little movement. Let's wind it just a bit more. There you have it. We now have a pull strap. That leads us to our next problem. We have to reinstall the roller. Oh, and of course, there's the line feed mechanism too. And then you can pull this tab and this tab, tighten them up. One of the rare times you can use a regular screwdriver. It wasn't all that long ago that I bought for my brother-in-law an L.C. Smith number 8. That was the first typewriter that I had ever owned, even though I owned it briefly. And it was, as I said, purchased as a gift, but it needed some work. And one of the things it needed was that pull strap. And investigating how that pull strap worked and how to work on it really got me hooked. But then the thing I loved about the L.C. Smith number 8, and indeed the number 3 now too, are these decimal tabulator keys up here, and I'll get to those when we get to typing. I gave that one away, and it broke my heart because I had loved that one. But now I have myself another L.C. Smith with a decimal tabulator, and it's almost now in working condition. We can advance 1, 2, Ooh, that didn't quite go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. The last thing, of course, now is the ribbon. In order to use these, we're going to take it off of the plastic one that it's on. Now we have to check to see which way does it Uh-oh. This is going to be another problem now, isn't it? Alright, well, it means it's still not tight enough. Let's crank that mainspring a little bit more. It does not appear that these ribbon feeds turn, which would be a bit of a problem for me. Alright, well, I'll come back in a bit. Okay, so off camera, I was doing a little investigation as to what was wrong. And the main thing that happened was that my pull strap had slid off the drum and fallen down in there and got entangled. And it's no accident that it happened this way, because you remember I left it a little bit long? Well, I had to keep it tight while I tensioned the mainspring. And of course I didn't do that while I was trying to show it on camera. So I've redone that, just untangled, held kind of down here to keep the strap tight while it sucked it in. But then even then, it was moving rather slowly as the carriage would travel across. So what I've done is I've taken my oil can here. My oil can is filled with PB Blaster. I don't like the spray bottle. I like a pump action. I've even got a smaller one over here that does just that little drop. And I've pretty liberally put it all over the various bearings and things in the back here. And I hadn't done that yet because I didn't have a draw strap, so I didn't have ways to easily move it back and forth. Now, I can run it back and forth like this and work that oil in to all the various things that need it. And as I do it, it is getting easier and easier to do. Ooh, that went a little too far. It may be a little over tight because I'm having a hard time getting it quite all the way to the end of the draw. Alright, with that little disaster cleaned up, now we can start looking again at winding the ribbon onto the spools. And the important thing then is to see which way the spools feed on. And you can see this one is turning here, it's turning around that way. rather have it feeding the other way, so let's flip the switch, wait for the gears to catch up, and now we see that one pulling. So we will take this spool, you can use gloves if you don't want to get ink on your hands. I don't especially care. You want to feed that hole onto that little guy there. You see how there's a little hook in there? Now, just for the sake of feeding this in, I'm going to feed it through there. So now that this can feed freely, what we're going to do is just spin it all the way on. Alright, we've reached the other end. So we pull, roller off there. See, there's the little hook right there. There we go. Now it's on. We feed it through that spot there. Through that little feeder here on both sides. On the ribbon vibrator. Into the little ribbon vibrator holders. Tension that up. We should now have a functioning typewriter. I haven't set up margins or anything on this, so we're just gonna slide the paper in and we'll type. Ha! I screwed it up anyway. Oh well. Interesting. I screwed it up because you don't shift for the symbols. Okay, well, now we know. The other one wasn't like that. Well, there you have it. A functioning LC Smith number 3. When just a few days ago, it was a mess, covered in plaster and all gum to heck. Should probably try to set my margins, but for now we can just do it like this and say, welcome to dynamically haha. Well, it's a couple days later, and I've worked out what was causing those issues we had the other day. And we actually had a hint of it a little bit before then. So let's take a peek at what we found. You can see in here, this is the main spring. And the problem we were having, though we didn't know it yet, was that this drum, which should turn exactly in time as the escapement lets it go, what was actually happening was it was not. As this drum turns, and the draw strap turns with it, it was hitting some crusty spots. And though the spring would be moving and the carriage would move, as you can see it moving across there, imagine if the carriage didn't, or the drum didn't move, but the carriage was moving. And you can see this strap got loose. And when the strap would get loose, if it got loose enough, then it would fall in and foul up, and the tension that the spring is trying to transfer wouldn't be transferring, and we'd get several of the issues that we saw earlier in the video. Well, drip a little bit of oils down into the housing here, kind of in from here, or in from down here, into the actual spring itself. Let's see if I can show you that. Okay, so from the side now you can see we can apply some oils to the main spring here and some of the gearing in from the top, or come in along the tight bars and get down in here and apply some oils wherever we can. Work it in a little bit, and now, after all that is done, let's spin this back around. We are finally ready, as I thought we had been before, to see this thing in action. I've roughly set up the margins. We'll throw a sheet of paper in here. You can see them here. The numbers are actually the shifted part of the keys. I've never seen that before. If you want to type a pound sign, you do not shift. But also, so I'm going to hit the shift lock here so that I can have the numbers. The font on these numbers is really quite cool. And it's got extra It's not quite serifs. I'm not a font person, so I can't tell you, but it does definitely look distinctive. Also, I notice it has a number 1 key, which many models of this era wouldn't have had, so that's a little surprising as well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm going to get better at this whole filming thing and hopefully present to you more of my collection. But for now, this has been the L.C. Smith number 3 that we brought back from being completely crusted in plaster to basically working condition. And thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.